"Mom, when are you planning to organize moving your things over here?" Caleb asked his own mother during the housewarming barbecue for the home I had bought and gifted to my daughter, Chloe. Victoria Vance smiled and took a sip of her wine before answering, as if the question were completely normal. "I figure in about 2 weeks. Son, I have it all figured out. My sofa would fit perfectly in the living room, and my bed is much better than the one you two have now." I felt my mouth go completely dry. I looked at Chloe, searching for some reaction, but she had her eyes fixed on her plate. Caleb continued eating as if nothing was wrong, while the rest of the guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. No one said a word. The silence was dense, heavy. It was at that exact moment that Arthur, my partner, set his silverware down on the table with a sharp clatter that made everyone turn to look at him. He stood up from his chair calmly, wiped his mouth with his napkin, and looked directly at Victoria. "I think there is a very big confusion here that I need to clear up right now, in front of everyone," he said, with a firm but calm voice. "This house is deeded solely in the name of Margaret Hale. She bought it with her money, with her savings from 5 years of working double shifts at the hospital. The house was a gift to Chloe, her daughter, with an asset protection clause that we drafted with the attorney 3 months ago." Victoria's face changed color. She set her wine glass down on the table with such force that the red liquid spilled onto the white tablecloth. "What do you mean? Only in Margaret's name? Caleb is Chloe's husband. This is my son's house too." Arthur shook his head. "The law is clear, Victoria. Since the house was a gift from Margaret to Chloe before the marriage and is designated as separate property, Caleb has no legal claim to the property, and much less do you." Victoria choked on the sip of wine she had just taken. She started coughing violently while Caleb patted her on the back. When she could finally breathe, her eyes were full of fury. "But let me tell you how we got to this moment, because this story didn't start that day at the barbecue. It started long before, with small signs that I ignored, believing they were simple misunderstandings. It all began 6 months earlier, when I finally managed to save up the $75,000 I needed for the down payment on the house. I had worked as a nurse for 45 years, first on the day shift, then on the night shift when the pay was better. After becoming a widow at 62, I had to reinvent myself. I picked up extra shifts. I worked weekends, holidays, overnight shifts. Every dollar I earned, I divided into 3. 1/3 for my basic expenses, 1/3 to help Chloe with her college tuition, and 1/3 went directly into a savings account I had opened with a single purpose: to buy a house for my daughter. Chloe was everything to me. An only child, raised only by me after her father died when she was 12. I watched her grow, study, and graduate as an elementary school teacher. I watched her fall in love with Caleb, a civil engineer who seemed responsible and hardworking. He seemed like a good man. At that time, I truly believed he was. When Chloe told me that Caleb had proposed, I felt a mix of joy and worry. Joy because my daughter had found someone who loved her. Worry because I knew that starting a life together without a place of their own would be difficult. Rents in the city had skyrocketed, and with the salaries of a teacher and a recent engineering graduate, they would barely make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck. That was when I made the decision. I would give them the house as a wedding gift. I didn't tell anyone, not even Chloe. I wanted it to be a surprise, something that would change her life in the same way. Having that kind of help would have changed mine when I was young. Arthur was the only person who knew my plan from the beginning. We had met 2 years earlier at a ballroom dancing group for seniors. He was a widower too, a retired engineer, a calm and methodical man who helped me organize my finances and look for the best housing options in safe, well-located areas. He never tried to take credit for my idea or suggest the house be in both our names. He always respected that this was my gift to my daughter, my effort, my sacrifice. "It has to be in your name alone, Margaret," he told me, when we started looking at options with real estate agents. "It is your money, your work, and later you put it in Chloe's name with the necessary legal protections. That way, no one can ever take it away from her." I followed his advice. We found a perfect house 20 minutes from downtown, in a quiet suburban neighborhood with tree-lined streets and good schools nearby. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a spacious backyard, and a 2-car garage. It cost $350,000, I paid $75,000 as a down payment and financed the rest over 10 years. The monthly payments were high, but manageable. Chloe knew nothing. The plan was to finish fixing some details of the house and give it to her as a surprise on her wedding day. But Victoria Vance found out ahead of time. It was Caleb who told her, and that was where it all began. One afternoon, 2 months before the wedding, I was at the new house supervising the painters who were putting the final touches on the walls. I had chosen light, neutral colors, so Chloe could decorate to her taste later. I was checking that the windows were sealed properly when I heard heels clicking up the driveway. Victoria appeared in the doorway with a huge smile and open arms. "Margaret, Caleb told me about the surprise. How exciting! I couldn't wait to come and see the house." I froze. I didn't expect Caleb to tell anyone. I had been very clear with him. It was a surprise for Chloe. No one else was supposed to know until the wedding day. "Victoria, I wanted it to be a surprise." "Oh, but I'm practically family already. Besides, I want to help you. I have a very good eye for decoration, and I know excellent vendors who can give you good prices on furniture and curtains." I tried to be polite. I showed her the house, explained the colors I had chosen, and told her about the garden I planned to fix up. She nodded and smiled, but her eyes scanned every space with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "It's cute," she finally said, "although the space is a bit tight. With 3 bedrooms, it's barely enough. One for them, one for guests, and the third will have to be for the baby when it arrives. There is no room left for a study or an additional sitting room." "It is enough to start," I replied. "Many families live well in smaller spaces." "Yes, of course. Although I always say it's better to have space to spare than to fall short. Anyway, we'll see how they settle in." I didn't give much importance to her comments at that moment. I thought she was just being an opinionated mother-in-law, the kind who always has something to say but without real bad intentions. How wrong I was. Victoria's comments became more frequent after that first visit. Every time I went to the house to oversee the progress, she would show up. She always had an excuse. She was passing through the area. She wanted to bring me a coffee. She had seen some curtains on sale that might look perfect, but I knew that in reality, she was coming to inspect, to give her opinion, to mark territory in some way I couldn't yet fully understand. One Saturday morning, a week before the wedding, I arrived at the house early to let in the guys installing the light fixtures. I wanted everything to be perfect for the big reveal. I had chosen modern but elegant lamps, the style I knew Chloe liked. I was carrying a box with new towels, sheet sets, and some kitchen utensils I had bought as part of the gift. When I opened the door, I got a huge surprise. Victoria was already inside. "Victoria, how did you get in?" She held up a key and jangled it in the air with a smile. "Caleb gave me a copy. He thought it would be useful for me to have access in case they needed anything or an emergency came up." I felt a knot in my stomach. That house was still in my name. I hadn't given Caleb permission to make copies of the keys, much less to hand them out. "Victoria, this house is still mine. You cannot make copies of the keys without my authorization." She let out a little laugh, as if I had said something funny. "Oh, Margaret, don't be so rigid. We are family. Besides, look, I came early because I wanted to get a head start. I brought some of my things to start storing them here. That way, when Caleb and Chloe move in, they will already have everything more organized." It was then that I noticed the boxes stacked in the corner of the living room. 4 large cardboard boxes with Victoria's name written in black marker. "What things did you bring?" "Dishes, pots, some decorations. I have a lot of things in my house that I don't use anymore, and that would be perfect for them. Why should they spend money buying everything new if I have things in excellent condition?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I didn't want to create a conflict before the wedding. I didn't want to ruin the surprise or cause tension between Chloe and Caleb. "Victoria, I appreciate the gesture, but I have already bought everything they need. Besides, I want Chloe to choose her own things for the house to reflect her style." Victoria's face hardened for a second, but she quickly smiled again. Sure. Whatever you say. Then I'll take the boxes back." Although thinking about it, I could leave some things stored in the closet of the 3rd bedroom. They won't be in the way there, and maybe later on they will need them. "No, Victoria, please take everything. There was an uncomfortable silence. She stared at me, as if evaluating how far she could push. Finally, she sighed and began to pick up her boxes, but she did it with slow, dramatic movements, as if I were asking for a huge sacrifice. That's fine, Margaret. I don't want to cause you any trouble. I only wanted to help. She left half an hour later, but before leaving, she walked through the entire house again, touching the walls, opening and closing the windows, checking the electrical outlets. She seemed to be memorizing every detail. When I finally closed the door behind her, I called Arthur. I needed to talk to someone who understood what I was feeling. Honey, Victoria has a copy of the house key. Caleb gave it to her without my permission. Arthur stayed silent for a few seconds. That is not right, Margaret. It is your property. You have to talk to Caleb and make it clear that he cannot do that. I don't want to cause problems before the wedding. It's not about causing problems. It's about establishing boundaries. If you don't do it now, this is going to get worse. He was right, but I still believed that everything would be resolved after the wedding, when Chloe and Caleb were settled in, and Victoria understood that her role was that of a visiting mother-in-law, not the lady of the house. How naive I was. The wedding was beautiful. Chloe looked radiant in her white dress, and when the moment came to hand her the keys to the house in front of all the guests, she wept with emotion. Caleb also seemed surprised and grateful. He hugged me tight and said, "Thank you, Margaret. This means everything to us. We are going to take care of this house like a treasure." Victoria was sitting at one of the main tables. She didn't cry with emotion like the other guests. She didn't smile either. She just watched with that expression I was already beginning to recognize. The expression of someone who is calculating, planning, waiting for the right moment. After the wedding, Chloe and Caleb went on their honeymoon for 2 weeks. We agreed that when they returned, we would host a housewarming barbecue at the house to celebrate with family and close friends. I offered to go over and prepare a few things while they were away. Plant flowers in the garden, organize the gifts they had received, ensure everything was spotless for their arrival. Arthur helped me with everything. We spent entire afternoons sanding, painting small details, installing extra shelves in the kitchen. He never complained. He never said I was doing too much, or that Chloe and Caleb should handle those things themselves. He simply supported me, helped me carry bags of soil for the garden, handed me tools when I needed them. "You are an incredible mother, Margaret," he told me one afternoon while we were planting roses by the entrance. "Chloe is very lucky to have you. I just want her to be happy, to have what I didn't have. And she will. But you also have to take care of yourself. Don't wear yourself out so much." I didn't listen to him. I kept working, cleaning, perfecting every detail. I wanted that when Chloe opened the door upon returning from her honeymoon, she would find a home straight out of a magazine, a place that screamed love and care from every corner. The day before the housewarming barbecue, I went to the house early in the morning to start preparing everything. I was carrying grocery bags full of meat for the grill, salads, drinks, bread. Arthur would arrive later with the folding tables and chairs he had rented for the guests. When I arrived, I found the garden gate open. Puzzled, I pushed the front door open and froze. Victoria was in the living room, moving the furniture around. She had slid the sofa to the opposite wall and was trying to move a heavy wooden coffee table by herself. "Victoria, what are you doing?" She straightened up and wiped sweat from her forehead. "Oh, Margaret, good thing you're here. I need help with this. I'm reorganizing the living room a bit because the way it was, the energy of the space wasn't flowing well. I have a friend who is a feng shui expert, and she gave me some recommendations." I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Victoria, you can't just come in and move the furniture in the house like this? Why not? I'm going to be coming often to visit my son. I want the space to be comfortable and functional. Besides, trust me, this looks much better this way." I set the grocery bags on the floor and walked toward her. "This is not your house. You cannot rearrange things without Chloe and Caleb deciding." Victoria let out a dry laugh. "Margaret, Caleb is my son. This is his house too. And as his mother, I have every right to give my opinion and help make his home the best it can be. Giving an opinion is one thing. Entering without permission and changing everything is something very different." She crossed her arms and looked at me with an expression that mixed amusement and defiance. Caleb gave me the key. Remember? That means he trusts me and wants me present in his life. If you have a problem with that, maybe you should discuss it with him. I felt rage starting to boil inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me explode. I am going to ask you kindly to put the furniture back in its place and to leave. I have a lot to prepare for tomorrow. Oh, but I came precisely to help you with that. I brought tablecloths, centerpieces, some gorgeous garlands I bought on sale. I don't need your help. Victoria, please, she sighed, as if I were being completely irrational. She took her time gathering her purse, walking slowly toward the door, and before leaving, she turned with a smile. As you wish, Margaret, but tomorrow I will arrive early anyway. I want to make sure everything is perfect for my son. She closed the door and left me alone in the middle of the disorganized living room. It took me nearly an hour to move the furniture back to its original place. Every time I pushed the sofa or moved the table, I felt frustration growing inside me. I couldn't understand what was happening. Why did Victoria act as if this house were hers? Why did Caleb give her permission to do whatever she wanted? When Arthur arrived that afternoon, he found me sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by the grocery bags I still hadn't unpacked. What happened? He asked immediately upon seeing my expression. I told him everything, every detail. The key, the moved furniture, Victoria's comments, her attitude of ownership. Arthur sat beside me and took my hand. This has gone from being something uncomfortable to being a serious problem. Victoria is marking territory, and Caleb is letting her. You have to talk to Chloe before this gets more out of control. I don't want to ruin her happiness. They just got married, just got back from their honeymoon. Margaret, listen to me closely. You sacrificed 5 years of your life, worked until you were exhausted, took food out of your own mouth to buy this house. You cannot let someone come and appropriate your effort just like that. He was right, but there was something in me that still resisted confronting the situation. Maybe it was the fatigue of years being the one who always solved the problems, the one who always carried everything. Or maybe it was the fear of being seen as the problematic mother-in-law, the controlling mother who couldn't let go of her daughter. I decided to wait until after the barbecue. If Victoria crossed the line again, then I would talk to Chloe and Caleb directly. That night, I could barely sleep. I replayed every interaction I had had with Victoria in the last few months in my head. The signs had been there all along, but I had ignored them thinking I was imagining things or exaggerating. The next morning, I got up at 6. Arthur and I arrived at the house at 7 to start with the preparations. We set up the tables in the garden, hung some decorative lights in the trees, prepped the grill. At 9, when we were just arranging the chairs, Victoria appeared. She was carrying 2 large suitcases. Good morning. I came early, like I said. I brought a few little things. The suitcases were full of decorations, embroidered tablecloths, cloth napkins with her name embroidered on them, elaborate centerpieces made with artificial flowers, even plates and silverware from her own house. Victoria, we already have everything ready, I said, trying to sound calm. Oh, but this is going to look much better. Look how lovely these tablecloths are. They are imported. They cost me a fortune years ago. She began taking everything out and replacing the things I had set up. She removed my simple tablecloths and put hers on. She swapped the centerpieces I had made with fresh flowers from the garden for her artificial arrangements. She even tried to swap the disposable plates I had bought for her porcelain dishware. Victoria, stop, I said finally with a firm voice. Leave things as they are. She looked at me in surprise, as if she couldn't believe I was contradicting her. I just want it to look nice. It already looks nice. With my things. The things I chose. There was a moment of tension. Arthur walked over and stood next to me in silence, showing support. Victoria looked at both of us, assessed the situation, and finally took a step back. Fine, as you wish. But don't come complaining to me later if the guests think the decoration is too simple. She went toward the house, and I continued arranging the tables, but my nerves were already shot. Not even 2 hours of the day had passed, and I was already emotionally exhausted. At 11, the guests began to arrive. Chloe and Caleb arrived radiant, holding hands, greeting everyone with enthusiasm. My daughter looked so happy that for a moment I forgot all the tensions of the morning. This was for her. Her happiness was the only thing that mattered. The guests toured the house, praised every detail, congratulated the couple. Caleb showed off the garden with pride, talking about the plans he had to build a deck in the future. Chloe showed off the kitchen she liked so much, talking about all the recipes she planned to cook there. Victoria walked behind them on every tour, adding her own comments. Yes, the house is cute, small but functional, although eventually they will need something bigger when the grandchildren start arriving. The kitchen is well equipped, although I have a set of professional pots that would be perfect for them. I can bring them over next week. The garden has potential but needs more work. I know an excellent landscaper who can do a complete design for them. I'll pass you the contact. Every comment was like a tiny needle. They weren't terrible things on their own, but added up, they created a constant feeling that nothing I had done was good enough. Arthur squeezed my hand when he saw my expression. Breathe. Don't give her the power to ruin your day. I tried to follow his advice. I concentrated on attending to the guests, serving the food, ensuring everyone had drinks. The meat was cooked perfectly, the salads fresh, the atmosphere cheerful. Despite Victoria, the barbecue was being a success. It was at mealtime when everything changed. We were all seated at the tables in the garden. I was at a table with Arthur, some of Chloe's cousins, and some college friends. Chloe and Caleb were at the head table with Victoria, some of Caleb's relatives, and close friends of both. The conversation flowed normally. People ate, laughed, toasted the couple. I was starting to relax finally when I heard Caleb's voice rise above the general murmur. Mom, when are you planning to organize moving your stuff over here? The entire garden went silent. I left my fork on my plate. Everyone nearby turned to look toward the head table. Victoria smiled broadly, as if she had been waiting for that question all afternoon. Oh, son, how nice of you to ask in front of everyone. I have everything almost ready. I figure in 2 weeks I can start bringing my main things. My living room sofa would fit perfectly here. It is much more comfortable than the one you have now. And my king-size bed is ideal for the master bedroom. I felt my stomach churn. I looked at Chloe expecting to see surprise or confusion on her face, but she just looked at her plate in silence. She said nothing. She didn't protest. She didn't ask what they were talking about. Caleb continued. Yes, I think 2 weeks is fine. That gives us time to reorganize the guest room for you. We can put your television in there and your desk. You're going to be very comfortable. Victoria nodded excitedly. Perfect. And don't worry, I won't be a burden. I can help with the cleaning, with the cooking. I can even take care of the children when they arrive. It's going to be like having live-in help, but for free. Several guests began to murmur among themselves. Some looked toward my table, expecting some reaction. I was paralyzed, processing what I had just heard. Victoria was going to move into the house. Into the house I bought. The house I gifted to my daughter. And by the way they spoke, this wasn't a new idea. It was a plan they had already discussed, agreed upon, and organized without consulting me at all. Arthur set his silverware down on the table. The sound of metal against ceramic resonated in the tense silence of the garden. All eyes turned to our table. Arthur wiped his mouth with his napkin with deliberately slow movements, stood up, and walked toward the head table where Victoria, Caleb, and Chloe were. I followed him almost by instinct, feeling my legs shaking with every step. Excuse me for interrupting, said Arthur with a calm but firm voice, but I think there is a very big confusion here that I need to clear up right now, in front of everyone. Victoria looked at him with annoyance, as if Arthur were an impertinent child who had just interrupted an adult conversation. What confusion? My son is inviting me to live with him in his house. I don't see what's confusing about that. The confusion, Arthur continued, is that this is not your son's house. This house is deeded solely in the name of Margaret Hale. She bought it with her money, with her savings from 5 years of working double shifts at the hospital as a nurse. The house was gifted to Chloe, her daughter, with an asset protection clause that we drafted with the attorney 3 months ago. Victoria's face changed color. It went from the bright pink of excitement to an intense red of contained fury. What do you mean? Only in Margaret's name. Caleb is Chloe's husband. This is my son's house too. Arthur shook his head. The law is very clear, Victoria. Since the house was a gift from Margaret to Chloe before the marriage, and furthermore, counts as separate property according to the prenuptial agreement they signed before a notary, Caleb has no legal right to the property. It is Chloe's separate asset, inherited from her mother, and much less do you have rights to this house. Victoria choked on the sip of wine she had just taken. She started coughing violently while Caleb patted her on the back. When she could finally breathe, her eyes were bloodshot and full of tears, though I didn't know if from the coughing or the rage. That cannot be true, she said with a choked voice. Caleb, tell her it's not true. Caleb looked at Chloe, seeking confirmation. My daughter finally looked up from her plate and spoke with a barely audible voice. It is true, Caleb. The house is in my mom's name. She gifted it to me, but we haven't done the official transfer to my name yet. And why didn't you tell me that? Asked Caleb with an accusatory tone. I thought you knew. My mom explained it to you when she gave you the keys on the wedding day. She gave me the keys and told me it was a gift for us. She never mentioned that the house wasn't legally ours. I felt the blood rushing to my head. I took a step forward and spoke for the first time since all this had exploded. I told you exactly that it was a gift for Chloe. A gift from mother to daughter. I never said it was yours. Caleb. Caleb stood up and faced me directly. And what is the difference? We are a married couple. What is hers is mine, and what is mine is hers. That is how marriages work. Margaret. Not when there are legal protections involved. Arthur intervened again. And those protections exist precisely for cases like this, where a third party tries to appropriate an asset that does not belong to them. A third party? Victoria stood up too, yelling. Caleb is my son. I am his mother. How dare you call me a third party? The entire garden was in complete silence. The guests had stopped eating and were looking at us as if they were watching a dramatic movie. Some had their phones in their hands, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were recording everything. Victoria, I said, attempting composure. This is the house I bought for my daughter, not for you. Not for Caleb. For Chloe. If Caleb and you had other plans, you should have consulted first. Consult? Victoria practically spat the word. Consult with whom? With you? You no longer have any right to this house. You gifted it to your daughter, and your daughter is married to my son. That makes us family, and families support one another. Supporting is one thing. Moving in without permission is invasion. Victoria let out a hysterical laugh. Invasion? For God's sake, Margaret, how dramatic you are. I am only going to come live with my son to help them, so they aren't alone. So they have company, to take care of them. Caleb is 32 years old, I said. He doesn't need to be taken care of. Ah, but according to you, Chloe does need so much care that you bought her an entire house. The comment hurt because it had a bit of twisted truth, but I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. I bought her the house because she is my daughter, and I wanted to give her stability, not because she is incapable of fending for herself. Well, I want to be close to my son for the same reason, because I love him and I want to be present in his life. Being present doesn't mean moving into his house. And who are you to tell me how to be a mother? The conversation was escalating dangerously. The guests began to murmur louder. Some got up from their tables, clearly uncomfortable witnessing this family confrontation. It was Chloe who finally spoke, with a trembling voice but louder than before. Enough, please, everyone. She stood up and looked at Caleb with teary eyes. Caleb, when were you planning to tell me that your mom was going to move in with us? Caleb, he hesitated. I was going to talk to you about it this week. You were going to talk about it, or you were going to tell me it was already decided? Chloe, my mom is alone. She lives in a small apartment. She pays rent every month. Here we have plenty of room. It is logical. The logical thing would have been to ask me first. You didn't even tell me the house wasn't in your name, shouted Caleb. You made me believe it was ours when in reality it belongs to your mom. Because it is mine. My mom gifted it to me. We just need to do the transfer paperwork. And when were you planning to do it? Or were you planning to keep it in Margaret's name forever to have control over me? The accusation was so absurd it left me speechless. Chloe also stayed quiet, with tears rolling down her cheeks. Victoria took advantage of the silence to speak again. See, son. You see how they are. They hid important information from you. They made you believe you had a home of your own, when in reality, you are living on borrowed time in your mother-in-law's house. This is humiliating for you. It is not humiliating to receive a gift, I said. What is humiliating is pretending to appropriate something that doesn't belong to you. Appropriate? My son lives here. He has every right. Living here gives him no property rights, especially when there are legal documents that clearly specify it is a protected asset. Victoria pointed a finger at me, shaking with rage. You are a manipulator. You planned all this to have control over your daughter, so she could never be completely independent of you. That is not true, I shouted finally, losing my composure. I bought this house working day and night for 5 years. I killed myself, working to give my daughter something I never had. And I am not going to allow you to come and appropriate my sacrifice. No one is appropriating anything. I just want to be close to my son. Then find an apartment nearby, but not in this house. Caleb slammed his fist on the table, making the plates jump. Enough already. The two of you are acting like children. Mom, Margaret, this is ridiculous. He looked at Chloe with a hard expression. Chloe, I need you to decide something right now. Are you on my side or on your mother's side? My daughter looked at him with disbelief. Why do I have to choose a side? We should all be able to resolve this like adults, because your mother is making it clear she doesn't want my mom to be part of our lives. That is not what I said, I protested. I said I don't want her to move into the house. She can visit whenever she wants. You can go see her. You can spend time together. But living under the same roof is different. It is exactly the same, insisted Caleb. If you don't want her living with us, it's because you don't accept her as family. The twisted logic left me without arguments for a moment. Victoria took the opportunity to approach Chloe and take her hands. Chloe, dear, I know this is difficult, but you have to understand that your husband and I are a package deal. Chloe pulled her hands back sharply from Victoria's grip. We are not a package deal, Victoria. Caleb and I are the couple. You are his mother, not his wife. The comment landed like a bomb. Victoria recoiled as if she had been slapped. Her face crumbled into a mix of shock and offense. How dare you speak to me like that? I have always treated you with respect. I have opened the doors of my family to you. I have considered you like a daughter. No, Victoria. You have treated me like someone who is never good enough for your son. Since we started dating, you have criticized every decision I make, everything I do. Caleb intervened immediately. Chloe, that is not true. My mom loves you very much. She loves me? Caleb, your mom has come to this house without permission, has moved the furniture, has tried to change the decoration, has brought her own things as if she already lived here, and you gave her a key without consulting me. I gave her the key because she is my mother and I trust her. And you don't trust me? Why didn't you consult me first? Because I knew you were going to react exactly how you are reacting now. Being dramatic and irrational, Caleb's words resonated throughout the garden. Several guests began to get up from their tables, clearly uncomfortable witnessing this level of family conflict. Some said goodbye in low voices and headed for the exit. Others remained seated, divided between leaving or staying to see how all this ended. Chloe stared at Caleb with an expression I had never seen on her. It was a mix of pain, disappointment, and something that seemed to awaken in her for the first time, an understanding of who the man she had married really was. Irrational? She repeated quietly. Is it irrational to want to be consulted before someone moves into my house? Into our house, corrected Caleb. Into the house my mother gifted me, corrected Chloe. The house she paid for with her work. Victoria went back on the offensive, sensing an opportunity in the tension between the couple. Exactly. Chloe, your mother paid for the house. And do you know why she did it? Because she wants to keep you tied to her forever. She wants you to depend on her, to always have to thank her, to never be truly free. That isn't true, I said with a broken voice. I bought her the house to liberate her, not to tie her down. Then why don't you put it directly in her and Caleb's name? Why keep it in your name? Why those legal protections Arthur mentioned? Arthur responded before I could. The protections are there because I did my homework. Victoria, I investigated cases of young marriages where one spouse keeps everything after a divorce. I investigated cases where relatives like you try to appropriate properties that don't belong to them. I advised Margaret to protect her investment, and she had the intelligence to listen to me. Investment? Asked Caleb. So it wasn't a gift? It was an investment? It was a protected gift, clarified Arthur, to ensure it always remains in Margaret's family, no matter what happens. No matter what happens, repeated Caleb slowly, meaning that from the beginning you were already planning for a possible divorce. Since before the wedding, you already distrusted me. We didn't distrust you, I said. We were protecting my daughter. It's the same thing. It is not. Caleb ran his hands through his hair, clearly frustrated. This is incredible. We are here arguing about a house that isn't even legally my wife's. A house where my mother can't come to live because her mother-in-law says no. A house where apparently I have no voice or vote either. You have a voice and a vote, said Chloe. But you don't have the right to make unilateral decisions about who is going to live here. And you do have that, right? Because the house is in your mom's name? The house was gifted to me. Not to you, not to your mother, to me. But we are a married couple. Supposedly everything belongs to both of us. The argument was going in circles. Victoria watched intently, calculating her next move. When she saw an opening, she attacked again. Caleb, honey, I think your wife needs time to think. Maybe you should come stay with me for a few days while everyone calms down. No, I said immediately. Caleb, if you walk out that door right now, you are choosing. You are choosing to agree with your mother instead of working this out with your wife. Victoria shot me a look of pure hatred. Don't tell my son what to do. I am not telling him what to do. I am showing him the consequences of his actions. Caleb looked at Chloe, then at his mother, then at me. He seemed genuinely confused, like a child torn between two worlds. Mom is right about one thing, he finally said. We need time to think. This got out of control. It got out of control because your mother announced she was moving here without consulting anyone, pointed out Chloe. It got out of control because your mother made it clear we aren't welcome in this house, countered Caleb. That isn't true. No? Then let my mom come live with us. Why does she have to live with us? Caleb, we just got married. We need space to be a couple, to get to know each other better, to build our own family. My mom is part of my family, but she doesn't have to live under our roof to do so. Victoria approached Caleb and took his arm. Son, do you see how she is? They are making you choose between your wife and your mother. They are manipulating you to reject me. No one is rejecting you, I said, tired. We are just asking for reasonable boundaries. Reasonable boundaries? Like not being able to visit my son? Like not being able to help him organize his house? Like not being able to be part of his life? You can do all of that without moving in here. It's not enough. I want to be close to my son. Well then, you should have thought about that before selling your house last year. Chloe exploded. We all fell silent. Victoria went pale. How do you know that? Caleb told me. You sold your house because you wanted the money to go on a trip to Europe. You spent everything in 6 months. And now that you have nothing, you come pretending we let you live here as if it were family charity. Victoria opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Caleb pulled away from her grip. Chloe, you didn't have to say that. Why not? It is the truth. Your mother made bad decisions with her money, and now she wants us to pay the consequences. That is cruel. It is honest. Victoria finally found her voice, and when she spoke, it was with a perfectly calibrated victim tone. I cannot believe you speak to me like that. Me, who gave everything for my son. Me, who sacrificed to raise him alone after his father abandoned us. Me, who worked 3 jobs so he could study engineering. And this is how you repay me? Throwing it in my face that I took a vacation I deserved after years of sacrifice? No one is throwing anything in your face, said Arthur with a firm voice. But you also cannot pretend that your financial decisions are the responsibility of others. And who are you to opine? You are neither Margaret's father nor Chloe's grandfather. You are just the boyfriend, someone who arrived 2 days ago to this family. I have been with Margaret for 8 years, and in those 8 years, I have seen how she has killed herself working to buy this house. I am not going to stay silent while someone tries to appropriate her effort. No one is appropriating anything. So what exactly is it that you plan to do here, Victoria? Asked Arthur. Because as far as I understand, you wanted to move in with your furniture, with your things, occupy a room permanently. That is not visiting. That is moving in. It is being close to my son. It is what any mother would do. No, it is not what any mother would do. Most mothers understand that their adult children need space to form their own families. Victoria pointed a shaking finger at him. You don't have children. You cannot understand how it feels. You are right. I don't have children. But I have common sense and respect for other people's boundaries. The tension in the garden was unbearable. The few guests remaining were already gathering their things, saying goodbye with uncomfortable glances. No one wanted to be present for what had clearly turned into open family warfare. Victoria let herself fall into the chair dramatically, bringing a hand to her chest. My heart hurts. Literally, it hurts. I cannot believe my own son is allowing them to treat me like this. Caleb knelt beside her immediately. Mom, are you okay? Do you need your medication? She shook her head weakly, as if she could barely speak. I just need my son to defend me, to defend the woman who brought him into the world. I recognized the tactic immediately. I had seen her use the same strategy at the wedding when she didn't like the decoration Chloe had chosen. The sudden chest pain, the weakness, the need for medical attention that always miraculously disappeared when she got what she wanted. Victoria, enough with the theater, I said with a tired voice. There is nothing wrong with your heart. She looked at me with eyes full of tears. How can you be so cruel, so insensitive? I am not cruel. I am realistic, and I am tired of your manipulations. Caleb stood up and faced me. My mother has heart problems. She is diagnosed. She has medication. How dare you say it is theater? Because coincidentally her heart hurts every time she doesn't get her way, responded Chloe from the other side of the table. Caleb turned to look at her with an expression of betrayal. You too? You are also going to attack my mother? I am not attacking her. I am pointing out a pattern I have noticed in these 2 years. A pattern? How convenient. My mother has a real medical condition, but you reduce it to manipulation. Caleb. At the wedding, her heart hurt when she didn't like the flowers. At Christmas dinner, it hurt when your aunt proposed the toast instead of her. On my birthday, it hurt when we didn't want to change the reservation to the restaurant she preferred. It always hurts at the exact moment things don't go how she wants. Victoria sobbed louder. I cannot believe what I am hearing. My daughter-in-law, the woman I welcomed into my family, is calling me a liar in front of everyone. I am not calling you a liar, said Chloe. I am telling you that you use your medical condition as a tool of manipulation. It's the same thing. Arthur intervened again, this time with a harsher tone. Victoria, if you really feel bad, we can call an ambulance right now. If you have a real cardiac problem, you should be in the hospital. She stopped sobbing abruptly and looked at him with annoyance. I don't need an ambulance. I just need my family to treat me with respect. There it is, pointed out Arthur. The pain disappeared as soon as real medical attention was offered, because it was never real to begin with. Victoria stood up abruptly, with more energy than she had shown seconds ago. You are monsters, both of you, she pointed at Arthur and me. You have poisoned the minds of these children against me. No one has poisoned anything, I said. Your own actions speak for themselves. My actions? What actions? Wanting to be close to my son? Wanting to help the couple? Those are my terrible actions? Your actions are entering this house without permission, moving furniture without consulting, making unauthorized key copies, announcing a move-in that no one approved, and manipulating your son to take decisions without talking to his wife. Victoria pointed a finger, trembling with anger at me. You are the same. You bought this house without consulting Caleb. You put legal protections to keep him out. You planned all this to control your daughter. I bought the house before they got married. I didn't have to consult Caleb on absolutely anything. But now they are married, and you still don't give them full ownership. Why? Because you don't trust my son? Because I want to protect my daughter? From what? From her own husband? From anyone who tries to take advantage of her? Caleb took a step forward, jaw clenched. So if you think I am going to take advantage of Chloe, I didn't say that. You just said it. You said you want to protect her from anyone who tries to take advantage, and I am her husband. The conclusion is obvious. Caleb, you are taking things out of context. No, Margaret. I finally see things clearly. You never thought I was good enough for your daughter. You never trusted me. That's why all the legal protections. That's why keeping the house in your name. That's why rejecting my mother when she only wants to help. Chloe approached him. Caleb, that isn't true. My mom has always treated you with respect. Respect? Does it seem like respect making me sign a prenuptial agreement where I renounce any right to this house? That agreement protects both of you, explained Arthur. It also protects your personal assets from claims by Chloe in case of divorce. I don't have personal assets. I have nothing. So that agreement only protects me from my own poverty. The comment hurt because it revealed resentment he had been harboring. Chloe stepped back as if she had been hit. Resentment? Is that why all this is happening? Because my mom gifted me a house and your family couldn't do the same? It isn't resentment. It is frustration at being treated like a stranger in what is supposed to be my own home. It is your home. No one has said otherwise. But it isn't my house. There is a difference. Victoria seized the moment to approach Caleb again. Son, they are never going to see you as an equal. You are always going to be the one who married the rich girl whose mommy bought her everything. You are always going to be a step below. That isn't true, I protested. No? Then put the house in both their names. Now. Without protections, without clauses, without lawyers. Prove to my son that you trust him. The silence that followed was absolute. Everyone looked at me awaiting my answer. I knew that what I said in that moment would define the rest of this story. I am not going to do that, I said finally. Not because I don't trust Caleb, but because I worked 5 years to buy this house, and I am not going to gift legal rights to someone who didn't put in a single dollar. Victoria smiled triumphantly. There you have it. Confirmed from her own mouth. She doesn't trust my son. I would trust more if he weren't planning to move his mother into the house without consulting his wife. My mother has nowhere to go, exploded Caleb. What do you want me to do? Leave her on the street? I want you to help her look for an affordable apartment near here. I want you to visit her regularly. I want you to be a good son, but I don't want you to sacrifice your marriage to please her. I am not sacrificing anything. I am taking care of my mother like she took care of me. She took care of you when you were a child because it was her responsibility. You do not have the responsibility to sacrifice your independence for her now that you are an adult. Victoria let out a dramatic gasp. Did you hear that, son? She says that taking care of you was just my responsibility. As if it wasn't love. As if it wasn't voluntary sacrifice. I didn't say that, I clarified. I said it was your responsibility as a mother. Just like it was my responsibility to take care of Chloe. But now that they are adults, our responsibility is to let them be independent. Independent under your roof, with your house, with your rules, noted Victoria. What a convenient definition of independence, Arthur sighed deeply. Victoria, the house is going to pass to Chloe's name eventually. Margaret is only keeping it in her name temporarily, while she ensures the marriage is stable. Stable? So you are evaluating them. Like they are children taking a test? Like they are a young couple who deserves time to consolidate before making permanent legal decisions? Caleb shook his head. This is ridiculous. You two, he pointed at Arthur and me, have turned a gift into a tool of control. You have turned a gesture of love into a chain. It is not a chain, I said. It is protection. To you, it is the same. Chloe finally broke down crying. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed openly. I immediately approached her, but Caleb blocked my path. No. You already did enough. She is my daughter. She is my wife. And she is crying because of you. She is crying because you planned to move your mother into our house without consulting her. Our house that isn't even ours. The shout resonated in the empty garden, the last guests remaining left at that moment. The garden remained completely empty, except for the 5 of us. Chloe crying, Caleb furious, Victoria victorious, Arthur firm by my side, and me feeling how everything I had built was crumbling. Chloe wiped her tears and spoke with a broken but determined voice. Caleb, your mother is not going to move into this house. Not now, not in 2 weeks, not ever. He looked at her as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Are you giving me an ultimatum? I am telling you how things are going to be in my house. Our house. My house, corrected Chloe firmly. The house my mother gifted me. The house where you live because I invited you. But if you cannot respect that, then maybe you shouldn't be here. Victoria let out a dramatic gasp. Did you hear that, Caleb? She is kicking you out of your own house. It is not his house, repeated Chloe, and I am not kicking him out. I am asking him to respect basic boundaries. Caleb was breathing heavily. His hands were shaking, and his face was red with contained anger. You know what? You're right. Maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I should go to a place where I am actually welcome, where they don't make me feel like a stranger. Don't be dramatic, said Chloe. I am not being dramatic. I am being realistic. You guys made it very clear that this is Margaret's house, not our house. That I have no voice or vote. That my needs don't matter. Your needs matter. Your mother's need to move in here is not the same as your needs. Victoria took Caleb by the arm. Son, you don't have to put up with this. Let's go. You can stay with me while you look for your own apartment. A place that is truly yours. I saw the exact moment Caleb made the decision. His eyes hardened and he nodded. You're right, Mom. I'm going with you. Caleb, no, pleaded Chloe. Don't do this. Don't let your mother destroy our marriage. My mother isn't destroying anything. You and your family are destroying it with your lack of trust and your need for control. He headed toward the house. Chloe ran after him. Caleb, wait. Let's talk. There is nothing to talk about. You said maybe I shouldn't be here. I am taking your advice. He disappeared inside the house. We heard his heavy footsteps going up the stairs toward the master bedroom. Chloe stood at the entrance, crying silently. Victoria walked past her with a satisfied smile. This is what happens when you don't value your husband, when you put your mother above your marriage. I didn't put anyone above anyone, sobbed Chloe. I just asked for respect. You asked my son to choose between his wife and his mother, and he chose his mother. That should tell you something. She went up the stairs after Caleb. Arthur and I approached Chloe. My daughter let herself fall into my arms, trembling. Mom, what did I do? Did I ruin my marriage? No, my love. You didn't ruin anything. You set necessary boundaries. But he is leaving. He is leaving me. If he leaves over this, then he wasn't the man you thought he was. Chloe cried harder. I held her while we heard noises upstairs. Drawers opening, things being thrown, voices arguing in low tones. 15 minutes later, Caleb came down with a large suitcase. Victoria came behind him with another smaller suitcase and an expression of absolute triumph. We're leaving, announced Caleb without looking at Chloe. Caleb, please. My daughter tried one last time. We can resolve this. We can go to couples therapy. We can talk calmly when we are all less upset. There is nothing to resolve. You made it very clear where your priorities lie. My priorities are with you, but also with myself. And with myself means not allowing your mother to appropriate my house. Then enjoy your house, he said coldly. Enjoy it alone. He walked toward the door. Victoria followed him. But before leaving, she turned toward me. I hope you're happy. Margaret, you destroyed your daughter's marriage for your pride and your need for control. But don't worry. I am going to take care of my son. I am going to be there for him when he finally realizes the mistake he made by marrying into such a toxic family. The only toxic one here is you, I replied. And someday, your son is going to realize it. She smiled. I am still his mother, blood of his blood. You are just the mother-in-law. And mothers-in-law are replaceable. She left, leaving the door open. Caleb closed it with a slam that made the windows rattle. Chloe collapsed on the sofa, sobbing uncontrollably. I sat next to her and hugged her while her world crumbled. Mom, I ruined everything. I should have let Victoria move in. I should have accepted. No, my love. If you had accepted, you would have lost your dignity and your peace of mind. And eventually you would have lost your marriage anyway, because you cannot build anything solid on the basis of manipulation. But he left. He left me. He left with his mother, and that tells you everything you need to know about his maturity and his capacity to be a husband. Arthur sat on the other side of Chloe. Your mom is right. A man who chooses his mother over his wife in a conflict like this is not ready to be married. But I love him, cried Chloe. And I thought he loved me. Maybe he loves you, I said. But he doesn't love you more than he loves pleasing his mother. And that kind of love is not enough to build a life together. The three of us stayed there, sitting in the living room of the house that had caused all this explosion. The house I bought with so much sacrifice, with so much love, with so many hopes of giving my daughter a better future. And now my daughter was destroyed, her marriage in ruins, and all because of a manipulative woman who couldn't let go of her son. That night, Chloe stayed to sleep at the house. She didn't want to return to the small apartment where she had lived before the wedding. She didn't want to be alone. Arthur and I also stayed, sleeping in one of the guest rooms, while Chloe tried to rest in the master bedroom. But none of the three of us really slept. I heard Chloe cry for hours. I heard her phone ring repeatedly and then go silent when she probably turned it off. I heard her footsteps walking down the hallway in the early morning. At 3 a.m, I went down to the kitchen to make her some tea. I found her sitting at the dining table, looking at her phone with swollen eyes. "Can't sleep?" I asked. She shook her head. "Caleb sent me a message." My blood ran cold. "What does it say?" "It says we need to talk. That this was a mistake, that we should try to fix it." I felt a glimmer of hope. "That is good, isn't it?" Chloe showed me the full message. I read it completely, and the hope turned into fury. The message said, "We need to talk. This was a mistake. We should try to fix it. But only if you accept that my mom comes to live with us. It is the only way it can work. Think about it and let me know tomorrow." I read the message 3 times to make sure I had understood well. Caleb was not offering a real reconciliation. He was offering a conditional surrender where Chloe would have to accept exactly what he and his mother wanted from the beginning. "What are you going to answer him?" I asked, although I feared the answer. Chloe left the phone on the table and covered her face with her hands. "I don't know, Mom. I am so tired, so confused. Maybe I should accept. Maybe if I let Victoria live here for a while, she will see that it isn't such a good idea and will leave on her own." "Chloe, look at me," I said, taking her by the hands. "If you accept this now, it never ends. Victoria is never going to leave because she is never going to want to leave. And you are going to live the rest of your life sharing a house with your mother-in-law, watching how she controls every aspect of your marriage, of your home, eventually of your children if you have them. And if I don't accept, I lose Caleb. If Caleb leaves you over this, then you don't lose him. He loses himself and loses the opportunity to have a real marriage." Chloe shook her head, tears rolling down her cheeks again. "Mom, we've only been married 2 months. These are supposed to be the happiest months. How did we get here? We got here because Victoria has been planning this since before the wedding. She saw the house as her opportunity to have a place to live for free. And she has been manipulating Caleb to accept it as something normal. But Caleb is smart. He is educated. How can he not see what his mother is doing? Because he has spent 32 years being conditioned by her. For him, this is normal. Pleasing his mother, putting her needs first, feeling guilt when he tries to set boundaries. That is all he knows." Arthur appeared in the kitchen, also unable to sleep. "Everything okay?" Caleb messaged her. I said. "He says they can fix it if Chloe accepts Victoria moving in here." Arthur sighed and sat with us. "Chloe, can I speak to you with total honesty?" She nodded. "I have seen many cases like this in my family, among friends, even in my first marriage. Men who cannot separate emotionally from their mothers. And I am going to tell you something you might not want to hear. They don't change unless they hit rock bottom and decide to change for themselves. You cannot change him. Neither your love, nor your patience, nor your sacrifice are going to make Caleb suddenly set boundaries with his mother if he doesn't want to do it. So what do? Do I give up? You don't give up. You protect yourself. You respond to that message with absolute clarity. You tell him that you are willing to work on the marriage, but Victoria living in this house is a non-negotiable boundary. And if he cannot accept that, then you need to separate until he decides what is more important to him. And if he chooses his mother, then you will have saved yourself years of suffering. Because trust me, if you give in now, this only gets worse." Victoria is going to control your house, your kitchen, how you raise your kids, every decision you make, and Caleb is going to allow it because he never learned to say no to her. Chloe remained silent for a long time. Finally, she picked up her phone and began to write. When she finished, she showed us the message before sending it. Caleb, I love you and I want our marriage to work. But I am not going to allow your mother to live in this house. It is not negotiable. If you want to work on us, we can go to couples therapy. We can establish healthy boundaries with our families. We can build our own home and our own life. But it has to be our life, not the life your mother wants for us. If you cannot accept that, then I think we need time apart to think about what we really want. Do I send it? She asked with a trembling voice. Send it, I said, squeezing her hand. She pressed send. The three of us stared at the phone, waiting for an answer that didn't arrive that night. The following days were a whirlwind. Chloe stayed at the house, unable to face going back to work yet. Caleb didn't answer her message for 2 full days. When he finally did, it was brief and cold. I need time to think. But Victoria didn't need time to think. Victoria was in full attack mode. She began calling family members, telling them her version of events. She called Chloe's aunts, my cousins, even some family friends. In her version, I was a controlling mother who had manipulated her daughter to reject her husband. She was just a loving mother who wanted to be close to her son and who had been cruelly kicked out. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Relatives I barely saw called me to ask what had happened, to tell me that Victoria was very affected, to suggest that maybe I was being too hard. Hard? I yelled at my cousin Amelia when she called. I am the hard one? Victoria tried to move into the house without permission, and I am the bad one? I'm just saying families should support each other, replied Amelia with a diplomatic tone. And Victoria is alone, without a home of her own. Maybe you could be more flexible. Victoria sold her house to go on a trip to Europe. That was her decision. It is not my responsibility to solve the consequences of her bad financial decisions. You sound very harsh, Margaret. You don't sound like yourself. I hung up, furious. It was like that with every call. Relatives who didn't know the whole story judging me based on Victoria's manipulated account. But the worst wasn't the calls. The worst was when Victoria began sending messages directly to Chloe. The first messages were seemingly conciliatory. Chloe, I am very sorry if I offended you. I only want the best for you and for my son. We can talk like adults and resolve this. Chloe didn't respond. Then the messages changed tone. I cannot believe you are doing this to Caleb. He gave you everything, and you are destroying him for whims. Your mother brainwashed you. Chloe blocked Victoria's number. Victoria began calling from unknown numbers. Chloe stopped answering calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Then Victoria appeared at the house. It was an afternoon, 5 days after the barbecue disaster. Chloe was in the garden, trying to distract herself by pruning the plants. I was inside making dinner when I heard shouting outside. I ran toward the garden and found Victoria standing at the gate, screaming at Chloe. You have to talk to me. You cannot ignore me like this. Victoria, get out of my house, said Chloe with a firm but trembling voice. This is not your house. It is your mother's house. You just live here on borrowed time like everyone else. Leave now or I'm calling the police. Victoria laughed hysterically. The police? You are going to call the police on your husband's mother? Do you know what that will do to your marriage? My marriage is already destroyed thanks to you. I didn't destroy anything. Your mother destroyed it with her selfishness and her manipulation. I went out to the garden. Victoria, Chloe asked you to leave. Leave now. She pointed a finger at me. You. All this is your fault. You put ideas in your daughter's head. You convinced her that I am the enemy when I only want to help. You don't need to help. You need to leave my daughter alone. She is married to my son. I cannot leave her alone because she is family now. Family respects boundaries. You only invade. Victoria took a step toward me, her face twisted with fury. I am going to destroy you, Margaret. I am going to make sure the whole family knows what kind of person you are. I am going to ruin your reputation, and I am going to get my son back. Your son is an adult. He is not yours to get back. He is always going to be my son, and he is always going to choose me over any other woman. Then Chloe got lucky to discover it now, and not after having children with him. Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but at that moment Arthur came out of the house with his phone in his hand. I already called the police. They said they are on their way. Victoria went pale. You wouldn't dare. We just did, said Arthur. You are on private property after you were asked to leave. That is criminal trespassing. Victoria looked at the three of us with pure hate, turned on her heels, and walked fast toward her car parked on the street. Before getting in, she shouted one last threat. This doesn't end here. My son is going to come back, and when he does, you are going to beg for my forgiveness. She started the car with such force that the tires screeched. Chloe let herself fall into a garden chair, shaking. Mom, I'm scared. She is completely out of control. I know, my love, but we did the right thing. You set boundaries and defended them. And if Caleb never comes back, and if she wins? I hugged her tight. If Caleb doesn't come back unless you accept his mother living here, then you don't want him to come back. Because that is not love, it is blackmail. 3 weeks passed since that day. 3 weeks in which Chloe finally went back to work, trying to regain some normality in her life. 3 weeks in which Caleb gave no signs of life beyond a cold message saying he needed space. 3 weeks in which Victoria tried to contact us in every possible way, until Arthur threatened a restraining order, and it finally stopped. It was in the 4th week when everything was resolved in the most unexpected way. Caleb appeared at the house one afternoon without warning. Chloe was alone. I had gone out with Arthur to do some shopping. When we returned, we found them sitting in the living room, talking in low voices. Mom, said Chloe when she saw us enter. Caleb has something to say. He stood up, looking haggard. He had lost weight and had deep circles under his eyes. Margaret, Arthur, I need to apologize. To all of you. I stayed silent, waiting. I spent these weeks living with my mother and I saw things I never wanted to see before. Her need to control everything, to manipulate every situation, to make everything revolve around her. I tried to look for my own apartment, and she sabotaged every opportunity. When I talked about you guys, she would start crying. When I mentioned going back to Chloe, she threatened to get sick. He paused, his voice cracking. And finally I understood that you were right. My mother didn't want to help. She wanted to take ownership of this house, of my life, of my marriage. And I was letting her because I never learned to say no to her. And now? I asked. Now I rented an apartment in my name. Small, but enough for me alone for now. I told my mother she cannot come live with me, that I am going to help her financially to find a place of her own, but that I need space. And I cut contact for a month, because I need to distance myself from her manipulation. He looked at Chloe with eyes full of tears, and I came to ask my wife to give me another chance. Not to move back in here immediately, but to start over. To go to couples therapy, like she suggested. To learn to be a real husband, not a boy tied to his mother. Chloe was crying too. And if your mother pressures again, then I maintain my boundaries. Because I finally understood that choosing my wife doesn't mean stopping loving my mother. It means growing up and building my own family. We left them alone to talk. Arthur and I went out to the garden and sat in the chairs where weeks ago everything had exploded. Do you think he means it? I asked. I think he wants to mean it. Whether he really achieves it or not, time will tell. And if he fails again, then Chloe will have to make a decision. But at least now she knows exactly who he is and what his weaknesses are. There are no more deceptions. Months passed. Caleb kept his word. He went to individual therapy and then couples therapy with Chloe. He kept his separate apartment for 6 months while they worked on rebuilding trust. He established clear boundaries with Victoria, who eventually found a subsidized apartment for seniors and learned to live alone, although she never stopped resenting me. When Caleb finally moved back into the house, it was under very different terms. They had signed an agreement where he recognized the property was exclusively Chloe's, where they established clear rules about family visits, where both committed to maintaining healthy boundaries with their families of origin, and I finally transferred the full deed of the house to Chloe's name, knowing that now she had the strength to protect what was hers. Today, 3 years later, I see my daughter living in that house with peace and dignity. Caleb became the husband he always should have been. Although the path was painful, Victoria visits them once a month, always with clear boundaries, always knowing that her place is that of a visiting grandmother, not the owner. And I learned that sometimes the greatest love you can give your children isn't protecting them from all pain, but giving them the tools to defend themselves and the strength to stand firm when someone tries to snatch away what is theirs. That house I bought with 5 years of sacrifice didn't just give Chloe a roof, it gave her the most important lesson of her life, that her dignity is not negotiable, that boundaries are self-love, and that no manipulation is worth more than her peace of mind. And that lesson is worth more than any property.